let's sort of start to look at what the future maybe looks like. And I think we're starting to see that. I think the pandemic has accelerated change that was already happening. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in this digital phase about what this pandemic is doing to us as humans and where you see that playing out.
Well, I have been predicting for probably 15 years now that there's going to be what I call a blue screen moment for our culture. That blue screen moment was in reference to you remember when a computer would have that, it would just, the old Microsoft, it would just come up with a blue screen. And basically it meant that you're in trouble. The whole thing has to start over. I had a blue screen moment with a computer back in, 1998, 1999. And I had just finished a book. I literally had my entire book on there and I lost it all. And it took me 6 months to write it, but I had to reconstruct it for a deadline within 3 weeks. But that blue screen moment caused a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of doubt, a lot of, where are we going? What am I going to do here? But in the process, I actually think I wrote a better book. When I rewrote it, I actually wrote it in a better. Blue screen moment is what COVID is for us as a culture. It has caused us all to rethink how we do things. When you look at business, it has changed entire business models. Restaurants, we got a restaurant here in Boise that it was a cafe. It was a breakfast type of cafe. When the COVID hit and they had to shut down, they couldn't have anybody in their restaurant, and they weren't really set up to do a takeout. Most people don't do takeout for breakfast. It just wasn't a good model. But what they did have was lots of toilet paper, lots of other things that people suddenly wanted and needed. And so they started a new shop. They turned their floor of tables into a manufacturing place or a warehouse. And because their distributor was different than the other stores in town, they were able to get stuff that other stores couldn't get. And so they started selling. They totally changed their whole model. Seeing this right now in America in particular, I don't know how it is there in Australia, but in America, we're having a serious conversation about whether or not we're going to have school. Well, I could tell you, in 2000, I was predicting already that we need to get ready. I was a college professor, and I was telling the school I was at, the best thing we could do would be to sell these buildings, sell everything right now, and move online and become a totally digital university. Had we done that back then, we would have been totally prepared. But most schools right now have they made online learning, just kind of one of those things, well, we'll do it if we have to do it. But now they have to do it. It's because they have to do it. They have to do it. It's totally changed. In my world with the churches, for example, churches are having a terrible time because they're so used to having people come and congregate in a space. Well, YouTube and Zoom and all that has totally changed. And there are people out there like you and I who get it. And we've been getting it and we've been talking about it, but no one's been listening. And what the COVID moment has done is it's been a wake-up call that we can't ignore. This is not an interruption, my friends. I hear that a lot of times. Oh, it's just an interruption. It'll go away. Last March, it'll just go away. We'll be shut down for a couple of weeks and it'll go away. I think it's a disruption. It's a disruption. It's not interruption. And a disruption is what transforms us. It's what moves us out. It changes everything. The Protestant Reformation was a disruption of European culture, and it changed European culture for 500 years. The Protestant Reformation did. There are those types of things that happen. And this one just happened to be, who would have thought a little virus would bring the whole world to its knees? But it has.
It certainly has. And
I'd be curious what you think about all this, because I'd like to learn a little from you today as well.
I've reflected a lot on it. I've been working essentially in a digital world for the last 10, 12 years. And for me, I was ready. But essentially, I'm really fascinated by the accelerated change that I think, like the change was already happening. And it's for me, getting in the car to commute for an hour or get on a train and commute for an hour from a distant suburb into a high rise, for me, that's just an anathema. I just going, this is crazy. And sure, so we've got to balance that with the social aspect of being human, which we are. Humans are social creatures. So for me, looking into the future, I suppose, both concerned and also amazed and hopeful. There's both. Any technology has a good side and a bad side, and I was in Egypt Youth Forum about 2 years ago, and it was put on by the Egyptian president, and he hosted a roundtable which I was honoured to be part of. And on one side of the table was the negatives, in other words, the cons of social media, and the other side was the pros of social media. In other words, what are the good aspects and what are the bad aspects of social media? And me being an optimist, an eternal optimist, I saw, and because me, social media was just a great way to connect with the world. It gave me a voice without the gatekeepers. And I saw it as a way to get your creation out to the world. And what I discovered with social media was I could change the world in my own small way. But along the way, the feedback I got on this two-way communication from social media was that the world changed me. Mm-hmm. So what we're, I think, in the middle of what I'm going with this is that we are being changed by this moment.
Yeah.
Now, I think we as humans have got some choices to make. Whether we want to make it, do we want to grow from this, or shall we just shrink back to, country versus country? Are we going to be less global? Are we going to be more global and welcome? I see some positive changes. Well, I see a lot. You walk down a street now, people actually say hi because we are in this together. Yeah. I think that getting on and doing Zoom calls with friends all around the world. I think I spent 3 hours on Monday night, Zooming with 3 or 4 different groups of friends, individuals, and it was just fantastic. What really worried me a little bit in one sense was I actually was almost enjoying this, virtual drinks as we occasionally do. I went, wow, this is actually almost as fun as actually catching up. So the accelerated change, I think the nature of work is going to be totally different. Yeah. The nature of socializing is going to be different. How we run events, big conferences. The conference industry in the US is huge. There are 30,000 conferences a year, I believe, in the US. That's going to be changed forever. It's just so many elements to the change. And I think as humans, we've got to try and embrace the positive and grow from it. We don't learn from comfort because we all sit back and, go, I'll just leave things the way they were. We grow from discomfort. Yeah. That's where real growth and personal development happens. And I'd be interested in your thoughts on that.